I must admit, I was worried the first time I heard Amazon, of all companies, was gonna make a Lord of the Rings show for their streaming service. I mean, let's be honest, this sounds wrong on so many levels. How could this ever live up to the greatest movie trilogy ever made? I mean, that was perfection on screen. And after 20 years, it still holds up. No, actually, it's still the golden standard for any franchise to aspire to. Well, after watching those first two episodes, some of those worries are gone. Hello, and welcome to the Review of Champions. It's time to talk about The Rings of Power, Episode 1, A Shadow of the Past, and Episode 2, Adrift. With me are, voice only, Mr. Lord Deathman. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing very well. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. And Murph, he's on camera. How are you?
Hello. Good.
Great. Before we start, I would like to ask you all to hit that like and subscribe button and maybe join our forum on Sakar, sakar.freeforums.net. It's a nice little community full of nice fans. We'd love it if you sign up and join the conversation. And if you want, you can be on the show as well. We're going to talk spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episodes, go check them out first and then come back to the video. Well, let's just dive right into it. As I said in my opening statement, I was worried before I saw this, and those worries were taken away, and that was mainly done by the visuals. Do you agree, Mr. Lord Duffman?
I do. And overall, I really enjoyed watching The Rings of Power a lot more than I thought that I was when I first heard the announcements. I was always enthusiastic about it, though. I've always thought that Lord of the Rings would benefit from the streaming sort of episodic format that streaming kind of offers, even more so than Game of Thrones or its next closest competitor. But yeah, I do think that this was a worthwhile thing to make. And while I would consider myself to be more of a casual Tolkien fan than some of the people that know all of the names of the different characters and the different regions and all of the journeys and questing and what characters are made up and what characters are real, I think just as someone who's coming in with a moderate to intermediate level knowledge of rings of the whole Lord of the Rings sort of fandom, I think this was a very good effort for these first two episodes, and I'm curious to see more.
Yeah, that they are doing a lot of things right, aren't they? I mean, they suck you right back into that world of Middle Earth. I mean, the visuals are stunning, the landscapes, everything is perfect, and then the costume design, the visual effects you see, the sets they are on, they do a lot of things right, and um, it's the plot is not really there yet. There's some hints at plot lines, but you don't really know where it's all going. But yeah, it's very enjoyable. Murph, you agree?
I do. Aesthetically, it is like jumping right back into Middle Earth, which, you wouldn't think would be that hard to capture because you have such a good template with the original Lord of the Rings, but you never know. But I feel like at least visually and in like musically and all that sort of thing, costume design, all that stuff, just the way it looks and sounds and feels, it is like a spot on, immersion of going back to that world. And I agree. I just think like it's definitely more of a slow burn than action right out of the gate, which I think is good because I would also consider myself more of a casual Tolkien fan. There are other fantasy authors and stuff that I've read way more of, and but I still enjoy the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, but I've not read any of the Silmarillion or whatever, however you say it. So it's stuff that may be covered in those books that would show up in the show, I am completely foreign to. So the only thing I know coming in is the characters that are still around by the time the Lord of the Rings happens, which there are very few. So, but I do think they did a great job of like really putting all these pieces in place and allowing you to get to know them enough that like I'm good enough whenever the story really starts to, and I don't know if it's going to bring all these characters together, but if it really starts to pick up each storyline, and they've dropped plenty of hints as to where it's going to go, and some of the stuff feels obvious to us because we know how things are going to go, but um, especially if you aren't overly familiar, I feel like you may be curious about you know where things are headed and what direction the show is going to take.
Were there any negatives for you in the show?
Not really, other than maybe the slow pace. But again, as long as it doesn't maintain like a super slow pace throughout all 8 episodes or 9 episodes, I'm fine with it. Not that it, I don't know, because now that I think about it, like there were some really cool action sequences thrown in, like the stuff at sea with Galadriel, with the sea monster worm thing. Like that was all pretty fun, and the intrigue around the meteor person, the guy who falls out of the meteor, that's all like mystery, and then the stuff between Elrond and Durin with the dwarves and all that stuff, and like where that's going to go, because we know he's building a forge. It's all good, but I guess just pacing wise, it would be the only thing. As long as it doesn't like crawl to a halt the entire way and go nowhere with the story. Like I want to make sure, because I've heard that it's like maybe they have 5 seasons worth of this already. Like they've greenlit 5 seasons, so I don't want it to be a total crawl the whole way. I want there to be an arc for season 1 at the very least that I can really latch onto and not just be setting up and setting up and setting up for the eventual fight against Sauron that we'll probably have. But I want it to go somewhere in season.
Yeah, that's where, of course, TV differs from movies. But actually, those movies aren't really particularly fast-paced either. They take their time as well. So I actually enjoy that it's slow-paced. Lord Deathman, we get to see some familiar characters played by different actors. Of course, younger actors because the characters are much younger. I'm talking about Elrond and Galadriel, or the other way around, whichever rocks your boat. What do you think about the actors replacing familiar faces?
I think the actors are doing a stellar job. I've seen a lot of criticism that they're not, or that they seem kind of generic. But I think that they're doing wonderful performances. I especially like the actress that's playing Galadriel. I think she's doing a great job. So I don't know where that comes from, other than you just expected to see Kate Blanchett kind of show up on the show. So you really kind of have to let go of those older performances and give these actors a chance. I think they're doing a great job. I also wanted to speak to the pacing, which is something that's been coming up over and over again. I don't know if it's just me or if I'm a little off, but I didn't feel like the pacing was particularly slow. I do feel like you were kind of taken on this travelogue across Middle Earth and across the Elven kingdoms. I just loved going to, Khazak Doom at the height of its, splendor and beauty, and then heading into the west. I always thought the elves would go to like an island where they would like hang out, and that's when they retire. But it was like this gigantic portal of light that you I was like, where are they going? But that dude really meant the king really meant eternity, Gilgalad. He was not speaking metaphorically, so I didn't know my Tolkien well enough to understand what happens to an elf that kind of gets sent off to enjoy eternity. But I just loved going all to the different places, the village, the human village, and then the way the Harfoots are kind of set up like Romani people who are kind of itinerant and setting up camp in different places. They're much more migrant. It was wonderful, and if you've made the investment in like a 4K TV with Ultra HD and HDR and all the bells and whistles. This show looks spectacular and it sounds fantastic on a 5.1 system. Not to unfairly compare it, say, to House of the Dragon, which I know is doing very well with its own fandom. But I found that House of the Dragon kind of has this weird cloud cover on it all the time that kind of made the show look a little gray and not as sharp as it could be. But Amazon really, you can see where they spent the money. It just looks lush. It looks fabulous, and the slow pacing really didn't bother me at all. I didn't have any problems with the way the story was unfolding. And it felt really immersive, like going back to Middle Earth and understanding your geography and all of the species and races that would be involved. And yeah, I'm kind of I'm bearish. I'm bullish, I should say, on the mystery of the stranger. I think that's going to be a wizard in the tradition of Gandalf that has fallen to Earth to kind of help with the new evil that's on the way. But yeah, they do a great job of setting up a very mythic story here.
Now that you mentioned Gandalf, I actually thought this is going to be Gandalf, right? Uh, at least that's the vibe I get. The way he talks to the fireflies, it really reminded me of Gandalf on the top of Isengard when he's imprisoned by oh my god, now I start to forget my names. By Saruman. He is imprisoned on the top of Isengard, the Tower of Orthanc, and then he talks to a creature to call the eagle towards him and actually save him. The way he talks to the fireflies, that strange guy that fell from the sky, it really gave me Gandalf vibe. Am I wrong here? Do I read too much into it?
I don't think so. I got a Gandalf vibe as well, not just because of the beard and such, but if I remember the myths properly or the stories, that these wizards are kind of sent from the heavens to kind of help humanity at times of trouble. So I was like, this could be Gandalf, but I didn't know enough about the second age to say whether or not he was actually around for it. So this could be another wizard, but their wizards aren't humans, and they don't like have mothers and fathers and things like that. They're kind of born as old men that kind of have all of this kind of magical power over nature and such. So I was like, this could be a new character, and I would be cool with that. It would be great if they were introducing
Mhm.
some character into the mythology.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Murph, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I definitely got Gandalf vibes right away. And similarly, I'm not versed enough in the lore to know if it's an acceptable change for him to be showing up here and now versus whenever the books say he's supposed to show up. I don't know that it's any different, but I'm just saying, um, I'm okay if it is Gandalf. I'd honestly be a little more interested if it was something different or someone different. If it's a different wizard, or if it's something more nefarious, because I will point out, like, he seems to talk to the fireflies and they do his bidding, but then they immediately die afterwards. And I thought that was an interesting, like, thing that happens. Like, I don't know if he killed them, like, his presence or his using their, whatever he whispered, like, drained their life or something, but they all died afterwards. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was an interesting touch. And I don't, it seems clear he's a wizard of some sort or something like that, whether it's something we haven't seen yet. I've heard somebody mention that maybe it's a Balrog pre-Balrog, and I don't know anything about the Balrogs before they become giant, like, devil-looking things, so I don't know if that's even a possibility, but it would be interesting if it was something more along that nature too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, then we have to talk about storylines. I clearly identify three storylines. Whatever is going on with Galadriel, whatever is going on between the dwarves and Elrond, and then there's that elf and woman that get chase orcs around and actually get chased around by orcs. Um, but the overall connecting thing is that in the background, of course, the evil Lord Sauron is lurking, waiting. I'm not familiar enough with lore to say whether it's gonna come down to a big battle, but certainly seems that way. Murph?
Yeah, so I mean, the Elrond story is leading to them building a forge of some sort. Like the guy that he talks to, the elf, is, and I only know him from the Shadows of Mordor game, but he's the guy who creates the ring, the elf who creates like the rings that you've heard about. So the forge that he's trying to construct, I assume, is the one that they'll use to create all these rings that wind up corrupting nine men and they turn into ring raves and all that stuff. That's my assumption. So that storyline feels like the most Sauron-esque, and then you've got Galadriel, who's honestly kind of all over the place already in 2 episodes. Like she's in an Iceland fighting frost trolls, and then she's about to sail into eternity, and then she's fighting sea monsters. And I like the character a lot. I just don't know where she's going to wind up, at this point, because it seems like she's been in every situation possible in 2 episodes. And then the Harfoots with the mystery man. I mean, the big mystery there. The Harfoots are fun. They're obviously hobbits, and I did a little bit of reading. Apparently, there's like 3 types of hobbits: the Harfoots, the Stouts, maybe, and there's one other one I can't remember. But they all kind of congregate and form the Shire together at some point.
Yeah, it's. I think what I've read the same thing. Is that the Harfoots cross the engine, and then the rest or the other 2 hobbits join them, and then they mingle together and become the hobbits, something like that. And then they cultivate the Shire first, I think, but that also happens in the Third Age, I think, something like that.
I assume that'll be like the end of their nomadic trek. You know what I mean? Like we'll be maybe at the Shire, and so that'll be cool. And then how they all come together, I don't know. I assume the mystery man is going to factor into the forge of the ring somehow. If he's a wizard, maybe he'll be able to help them, or maybe he's trying to warn them against it. I don't really know at this point. But what was the other one? Oh, the orcs and the elf man.
They put the men on the run. They have to flee the village.
Yeah. And I'm not sure where that is. That's the other thing with these 2 episodes. Like, just obviously the world feels massive, but like where are these orcs in comparison to like the frost area where the troll was? Like, is that the same area? And then it makes sense that the orcs are starting to basically destroy men's villages and the evil is rising again, or whatever. So once I get a heading on like where these things are actually happening and where everyone's at, I'm sure things will come more clear, I guess.
Yeah, those storylines need to cross, don't you think, Lord Deathman?
I do. And I will say that the storyline dynamics in terms of the first 2 episodes was not something I was carefully following. I was really just kind of getting re-immersed back in the world and all of the various locations and the characters and players. One of the things I've always appreciated about The Lord of the Rings, as opposed to other fantasy series, is how not human centric it is. It's like men are in The Lord of the Rings and they have their part to play. There's these, Numenorians and whatnot, but we have elves, we have dwarves, we have all of these different kingdoms and species, and they all have a different part to play in the saga. So I've always liked that about it. And, my really big takeaway from these 2 episodes is that an evil of the past is sort of becoming resurgent again. And we're just seeing the beginnings of that. That sword that was reforming. I don't know why that kid has that sword. I'm going to have to pay closer attention in the episodes that come up. But obviously, it responds to human blood. It might have been an artifact that Sauron sort of owned, or one of his lieutenants. I like the idea that Sauron's predecessor, Morgoth, although defeated, still has these death cults that are still prevalent amongst human beings who are sort of misled by his agenda. So it's really immersive, just the way the world is kind of unfolding here. Again, the central thing I took away from it is that Um, Galadriel in particular seems to be at the center of the idea that there's an evil that's resurgent or coming back again. The world is changing. You have the cows with the black milk, these bad omens, and the elves don't even seem to know much about it. They seem to be sort of in a stupor, appreciating themselves and sending themselves off to eternity, while the dwarves of for being such diminutive people seem to have a front row seat as they may have been approached to construct these rings of power, so forth and so on. So again, an immersive show, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Uh, like you, I'm also a sucker for world building, and uh, that's what I like so much about those first two episodes. It focused a lot on the world where the story takes place, not so much on the story itself. Which is when people who haven't seen the show, when they ask you, "Did you like it?" Yeah, I liked it, but is it any good? I can't tell you. Is that
Right.
weird?
In a way it is, but I get what you're saying in that, not enough story has actually happened for you to say definitively whether this is a good show or not. But
Yeah.
again, not trying to make too many comparisons to House of the Dragon. I am appreciating the fact that this particular show isn't as cynical and unrelentingly as bleak as House of the Dragon and the whole Game of Thrones world can be. Like, do I care about any of these people? They're all pretty bad, and I don't really wish them well. Like, it's just sometimes you cannot have an investment unless there's a Jon Snow or somebody who clearly stands for the right, or if unrelenting evil and pedophilia and all this other stuff is is your bag, then I guess House of the Dragon would be for you.
Well, yeah, no, I like House of the Dragon, but yeah, well, for what it is. But anyway, yeah, um, I think it's hard to rate this show, but if we were to
We
rate
got to
it,
give it a try.
yeah, we got to give it a try. Yeah? Lord Tefman, I'll let you go first.
Wow. So I'm going to use a 1 to 10 scale. And I thought about this, so I have to say I cheated. This isn't going to be off the top of my head. I really wanted to give this number consideration. And out of 10, I'm going to give this show an 8. I really thought that it was very strong visually. I thought it was acted extremely well. I think the leads are well cast. I'm not really sure why they're getting so much criticism online. And I really think that might come from hardcore fans that really can't let go of Hugo Weaving and Kate Blanchett and all of those characters that were from the beloved trilogy of the early 2000s. But if you really objectively look at the work they're doing, it is very good. I think it's very strong. So I want to give this show an 8. I think it looks beautiful above and beyond, everything that they were able to accomplish, which was a lot. This is a great looking show. It is very lush. The sound design, the editing, the special effects. They're really trying to bring this up to a movie level of quality. And again, if you're dealing with like a 55 or 65-inch television and you've got a dark room and a decent sound system, it looks just fantastic. So, and I just want to make it clear that I'm not throwing any shade on House of the Dragon. I did enjoy the first episode, which I watched, and I will continue to watch the show. But sometimes it can be a bit much in terms of what they have to offer.
Yeah, it's it's not wise to watch it before dinner. I mean, seeing a woman get operated upon, get her uterus. No, never mind. And let's not. You guys still have to get dinner probably. Murph, your rating, please.
I'll give it 9 goblins under the floorboard, leaving room for the epic scenes that are hopefully to come. Like I said originally, aesthetically, this was great. From especially when you compare it to other TV shows, I feel like it looks and feels like Middle Earth again. And for it to be a TV show, I know they spent like $1 billion on it or whatever, but it shows. You know what I mean? I guess maybe that's what it takes to make like a really well looking and sounding and feeling TV show is $1 billion. So make them all.
Yeah. Well, can't argue there. Yeah, I'm always a little when I watch stuff, I'm always about story and character, and I didn't get enough of that to really give it a high mark. Um, However, I did not expect to like the show as much as I did, quite simply because I'm not on the how dare they touch this property crowd, but I did have my doubts, as expressed before. So I'm gonna go with a 7 out of 10, and those 7 points are purely built based on visuals, sets design, costume design, the sound mix, everything that was perfect, and I give them credit where credit is due. They knocked that out of the park. If story and character are gonna develop on the same level, we may have seen the best TV. Will see the best TV show ever made, and but I'm not there yet. So I need a little bit more.
Yeah.
Understood.
So yeah. Do any of you want to say a little bit more about this show? I mean,
I do have some final thoughts I wanted to share about some things that I really had to do some soul searching to see if I wanted to bring up about recent criticisms of the show, but not to give too much attention to these types of things. But there is a segment of the fandom who seems to feel that they need to review bomb this show because it features people of color in roles that would traditionally be seen as having European Caucasian folks playing those. I really have to just express my confusion and just supreme disappointment over that. The show is diverse. I think that that's a particular good thing. I don't really think you need to put people of color into the show just for the sake of doing it. But these folks are capable actors. The two people that I'm thinking of in particular is the black gentleman that plays the elf, and then the wife of the dwarf prince. Both were doing fantastic, upper echelon work in terms of their acting. So just wanted to express a little confusion about that. And then the second issue I wanted to sort of broach is a little less dire and controversial, but it's really the idea that did a show like this need to be made at the price point that is sort of being bandied about? Did we really need to go back to the second age? And there are plenty of things that if you ask me, I'll be like, oh no, I didn't need a Wonder Twins movie, or I didn't need a Plastic Man movie, or it depends on where you are in the fandom. But something like this, in terms of going back to the world of the Lord of the Rings, it has a huge following, not just the novels, but the movies. There are even people who really like the second trilogy Peter Jackson did, although I think most of the fans would argue that it's not as good as the early 2000s, with Viggo Mortensen and all of those actors. But absolutely is the answer to doing this type of show. I'm not here to make judgments about what we could be spending our money on as a race or a species, but I will say that there are a lot of people who wanted to see some type of a live action treatment of the second age of the Lord of the Rings, and this show is perfectly justified in its existence. So don't really understand the criticisms you're getting from fans around diversity in the show, or the people who are kind of like waiting for Peter Jackson to make another three movies that would have come. He's given like more than half of his professional career to Lord of the Rings, and I think it's okay to let some other people step in and kind of pick up the torch when it comes to the story.
absolutely, and I totally agree with your statement about the confusion about people of color or whatever appearing in this world. I mean, It's not the first time. I mean, the people coming in from the south, specifically mentioned in the Two Towers, shown in also in the Return of the King, that they are people of color. They exist in this world. And I never care personally about what color or gender or whatever an actor or actress is, as long as they do a great job. And as we have concluded earlier, the actors and actresses in this show so far are doing a great job. And uh, just enjoy what you get instead of nag about all those details. And if you don't like it, then don't watch it and just find other media that appeals to you. I mean, uh, it's fine. You don't have to watch or like anything. The same goes for the MCU. If you don't like women or person of color showing up as heroes in the MCU, don't watch the MCU anymore. I
What?
mean,
But
you're not the same
I,
person. You're not the
yeah,
same person as you were 14 years ago, and things evolve. If you evolve, I hope, and just drop it. Just move on to other media and just watch that and enjoy that. I mean, you don't need to watch whatever those big studios or those big franchises bring out. You don't need to. If
yeah,
it annoys you, just don't watch it.
right. You can speak out more clearly with your wallet, more profoundly by ending your Prime subscription if it really bothers you that much. We really don't need to see and hear those tirades that go on online.
Yeah, but then all those stuff you order at Amazon doesn't come this quickly, and then so, whatever.
Indeed. I am going to share one small note of criticism I had about the show, and it is a very, very small note. I do think that in the tradition of a lot of new storytelling that you're getting for streaming and for movies, there is this tendency to want to push the female characters to the point where they overperform, and almost to the point where it's overcompensation. And I think Galadriel at times seemed to be pushing the envelope at that, but still very much an arresting character. And my policy with elves is that elves are elves. They can do everything and anything whenever,
Yeah.
regardless of gender, color. So it's like, you fought a sea monster. That, yeah, I believe that. Decided not to go to heaven. Yeah, I buy that. When it comes to elves, there's really no placing limits on what they are capable of. But I really hope they just don't turn her into a Mary Sue where she's single-handedly going to fight the evil.
So no, you need a few good men for that. Also, a nice movie. If you want to watch white people, go watch A Few Good Men. Anyway, um, Murph, any last thoughts?
Yeah. Coming back to the show proper, what do you think was in that box that the dwarves have?
I want to guess that it was one of the rings of power, or perhaps a set that was crafted for the elven peoples.
Okay.
And again, I don't know my lore. I know some, like, I think the elves kind of straightaways reject the rings and be like, look, I can see through this. This is a trap.
Yeah.
But the men clearly, they use the rings. I'm not sure how it landed for the dwarves, but I know the dwarves play a part in forging some of those rings. So I am guessing that we're going to see one of the rings, one or more of the rings of power are in that case.
Okay.
Okay. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Or it's the same thing. It's Marsalis's soul from Pulp.
Exactly. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah,
It transcends.
same case, but in the second age of Middle Earth.
If Ving Rhames shows up, then we'll know something's suspicious.
Yeah.
Or it's the head of Gwyneth Paltrow.
I actually said out loud when that scene happened, "What's in the box?"
Okay, I think that will conclude our review for episode 1, A Shadow of the Past, and episode 2, Adrift of the Rings of Power. Before we finish, I would like to ask you all to hit the subscribe button and notification bell on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, like our Facebook page, join the forum on Sakar. That way you will never miss us and we won't have to miss you. Bye.